Hi, my name is Saindon, and I am a Canadian composer. I write music for choirs, and I blame my singer-songwriter mother a little bit, since that seems to run in the family, the love of setting text to music and such. So I have been attracted to writing choir music for many reasons. And what I'm going to discuss specifically today is the pieces that I write that are for women's choirs. Now, one of the things that happen, I find, with women's choir is that they get given a lot of treble music, a lot of treble children's music to sing, with the assumption that because it's the higher register, it suits women's choirs. And yet, that's a false assumption, because there's quite a few things to consider, such as the range is not quite being correct. The tone and the color is very different. There's also just the subjects that are discussed, the mature themes that can be discussed with women's choirs that you might not want to discuss with children's choirs. So having sung in a women's choir before, I'm quite aware of the search for these types of pieces for the directors and the choirs, and I just became really interested in finding poems myself that I find discuss these themes and then set them properly for women's voices. One piece that I'd like to talk to you about today that I've written is called Blinded by a Leafy Crown. And this piece is based on a poem by Sarah Teasdale. The title of the poem itself is Leaves. And it was commissioned by Chœur Adlésia in Montreal, who was having a guest choir coming to sing with them during one of their concerts. And so they commissioned a piece that would be for double choir. And these choirs were 3 parts and 3 parts to have these two dialogue with their guests, with their guest performers. And I had a wonderful time working on this piece. I found the poem by Sarah Teasdale, and was just completely struck by the theme of the piece, which has to do with loss of faith, and yet the hope and gratitude that one finds when you've got the whole world to rediscover in a new light. So the poem goes, "One by one, like leaves from a tree, my faiths have forsaken me." I can feel that it's not the happiest poem, it's not the happiest piece, so obviously this piece is in minor, it's fairly slow, and you've got a lot of those descriptions of what those leaves are and how it feels to have lost them. In the middle somewhere, there is a moment where the poet says, well, I really missed those times where I was actually happy, and I'm paraphrasing. But at that moment, then I have a little bit of a chance to kind of brighten the mood, lighten the mood, and really get a little bit of a faster speed. But I can't stay there, because there's still this sadness that the poet had this naivete to believe these faiths that weren't really true in the end. So we come back down to something a little more sad again. I then come to the title phrase, "Blinded by a leafy crown." The full 2 lines are, "Blinded by a leafy crown, I looked neither up nor down." To me, I found that was the central line, because it kind of encompassed the situation itself. And this is really the spot where the 2 choirs have stopped doing the syncopated rhythm, and they're singing together so that the text really comes through. I found that really important. However, once that line is done, I was blinded, I didn't look up, I didn't look down. What do you do after that? You could either say, well, I'm defeated, my life has been useless. But the poet, this is what I really like about this poem, is that the poet decided to say, hey, no, I'm really hopeful, and I'm actually really happy, I'm really glad. Now I get to rediscover the world again. So the line goes, "Now for the first time, I know stars above and earth below." And that I found that so striking, that someone chooses the positive side and just discovers the world again. And for that reason, I decided to take those 2 last lines and just build them up, and I build up all the way to the stars, and then back down to the earth below in a kind of a humble, quiet stillness that I personally felt once I'd finished reading the poem. So I hope that this really comes across and that you get to experience this. If you're interested in having a score for Blinded by a Leafy Crown or any of the other scores I have, you can find all of that on my website. You can also ask me any question about whatever you find on my website through the contact page. I'll be very happy to answer any questions you have.